Hi, everybody. This is Brant Speshart with Steward Wealth Strategies. And I just want to say thank you for joining us today as we discuss 2024 giving strategies. You know, here at Steward Wealth Strategies, generosity is one of the key components of our financial planning conversations. You know, a lot of times people just think of investments or retirement, but we all know that tax planning, estate planning, protection are really critical. But we do think that God has blessed us so that we can be a blessing. And what a greater way to utilize financial planning to make an impact for family or others or community or kingdom than by incorporating generosity into our financial plans. And to help us with this conversation, I could not think of a better person than my friend Richard Newton with National Christian Foundation to just share with us a little bit about giving strategies and also some brief updates on 2024. Hey, Richard, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Brant, and thank you so much. And thank you guys as a firm for making generosity a focus. Obviously, I'm a generosity addict, and so which is a good job to have. But I really love working with firms like Steward Wealth and that make an intentional focus on it. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And, you know, we're super blessed here at Steward Wealth where a lot of clients entrust us to manage a lot of money. We are able to meet with and talk to a lot of families about their financial plans. And I really do think about the impact that goes beyond any of us when it comes to these conversations and decisions and actions that clients take. But before we start, you know, Richard, if I don't do this, I'll just start talking right away. But can you share just a little bit about who you are, you know, personally and professionally? But then, you know, if you don't mind, also, a lot of our clients have heard us talk about National Christian Foundation, but can you also maybe just give us, you know, a little bit of insight about who NCF is, and then we'll get a little bit more into the roles that you guys play as far as some of the tools and strategies that you offer.
Super. I'd be glad to do that, Brant. First and foremost, my family. I'm married to Elaine. We have two daughters, one son-in-law, and baby Henry, our first grandchild. And so he's just tender 3 months old, and so that's been a great joy. And I've been Brant. I've been doing. I'm a trustee. I worked in banking for a number of years, 2+ decades, and then started doing trust work in a different direction. And then a door opened up for me to start serving the National Christian Foundation about 11 years ago. And I've been sitting in this chair serving givers ever since. And at NCF, I like to say we do a pretty simple thing. We help people really dream and prayerfully about what they want to do with their generosity. And then we help them think about cool ways to make that happen. And we get to work with some great folks like you guys. And I mean, that's what we do. We'll talk a little bit more about it as we go along. But over the years, we're the largest faith-based provider of donor-advised funds in the country. And we've helped mobilize over $30 billion in gifts into funds and about $25 billion worth of gifts out. And so I probably got those numbers a little bit off, but it's been a lot of money mobilized for some really good things over the years.
So NCF basically helps people make sure their money goes to the organizations they care about. And Richard, your role, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're over the Raleigh office for NCF. Is that correct? I know you're in Charlotte right now as we record
That's
this
right.
because you
I
guys have
sure am.
offices there as well. But
Yeah.
um,
But you're right. I do. I lead the eastern half of the state of North Carolina for NCF Carolinas, and we're one of the affiliate operations. And we've got an office in Charlotte, and just newly opened our first office in South Carolina down in Charleston, South Carolina. So our new
oh, wow.
teammate will be hanging. You'll get to meet him on Wednesday at the conference. So I'm looking forward to welcoming Josh to our team and grateful for the opportunity to serve. We probably serve about 2,000 families across the Carolinas to help them make sure that they are doing the most with what God has entrusted to them.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And that's exciting about Charleston. And I mean,
Yes.
I love Raleigh and I love Charlotte, but I think a lot of folks would love to uh, say they have to visit Charleston for a vacation because their generosity requirements or whatnot.
I like that.
That's excellent. Yeah. So, all right. So you mentioned it, Richard, and I would say that most of our clients, when they hear us talk about charitable giving, one of the tools that we talk about is a donor advised fund. And we'll get into some depth as far as what can go into and maybe a strategy and if there's certain limits. But can you just kind of give everybody a simple version of what a donor advised fund is?
I will, and thank you for asking that, Brent. The most compact, efficient definition I like to give is that we operate very much like a charitable banking or checking account. And we know how our basic checking account works, and you put money in. In the case of a donor advised fund, we can put money, we can put marketable securities, we can put real estate, non-cash assets. We can put a lot of different things into a donor advised fund. But then you turn around and in a bank account that we might use for our families, we write checks or send bank drafts for bills and different payment things. And in the case of the donor advised fund or the charitable checking account, we are making grants to the ministries and nonprofits that people are most passionate about. And so just like a checking account, what it does is it provides a very efficient, systematic way for an individual to be able to manage their charitable giving, that manage their generosity. Once dollars go into that charitable banking account or that donor advised fund, then you have really at this point in time an unlimited amount of time to give to grant those monies back out. But it operates like a tool that allows you a great deal of efficiency in your generosity. And I always get this reply back almost unilaterally from people. They go, wow, thank you, Richard and Catherine and the team at NCF for allowing me to do this, because now it's made my giving so much more systematic and efficient. So that's what we do.
Excellent. Excellent. I will, my wife and I, we do have a donor advised fund, and ours is through National Christian Foundation as well. And I will say it's very easy to, to move money or financial resources in. And I've also noticed it's kind of nice at the end of the year. I really can see a summary of where all our giving is. So at tax time, it makes things a lot simpler
Oh,
too.
it does. One receipt instead of 5 or 10 is.
Yep.
I hear CPAs really like our donor advice fund platform because it really makes their job. And Brent, I won't make too much of this point for time wise, but one of the things that I hear people, especially business owners, talking about with their donor advised fund is that it allows them to put that money that they have earmarked for generosity aside. Go ahead and not wait until year end, but to go ahead and put it aside, just like we put savings and retirement and all kinds of different things aside so that we basically keep our hands off of it. Well, the donor advised fund is a way for us to do that with our generosity dollars as well, to put it in there, because once it goes into that fund, you can't pull it back out. It's permanently there for charitable purposes. But what's so great about that is when you're wherever it is and your heart gets moved that I'd really like to make a donation to that, you can go on your donor advised fund right there on your phone and make a grant and know that that money is right there waiting for you. You don't have to go check your checking account to see if it's there. It's already set aside for that. And I love that. I hear that from a lot of people.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the strategies, because I think, donor advised funds, from a generosity, or especially this time of year, it's not quite, but it's getting close to the end of the year.
Oh,
By the
yeah.
time our viewers, our clients, our fans, watch this, we're going to be probably into fourth quarter. And, I know most giving happens. I've heard you say it, Richard. I mean, what percentage of giving just on average happens in Q4, and probably how much happens in December, would you say?
Oh, yeah. I'd say about 65% of all the giving happens in the fourth quarter, generally speaking. and probably about 70% of that 65% happens in December.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, and a
Huge.
lot of it has to do with, people are thinking about their budgets, or the end of the year is getting here quickly, or they're starting to think about taxes. And, because we have conversations with clients a lot of times towards the second half of the year about tax planning strategies for year end. And, when it comes to generosity, and I'll let you touch on this here in a second, talk about, donor advised funds, and, and when it comes to the bunching or bundling get strategies, qualified charitable giving, I'll touch on that, but then also just understanding some of the limits and stuff that can come with some of our giving, because that can catch people off guard sometimes. But Richard, when it comes to a donor advised fund, there are strategies sometimes for itemizers or standard, folks that take standard deductions when it comes to the whole bundling or bunching. And sometimes we talk about this and people really don't know what we're talking about. Can you explain the strategy when it comes to bundling or bunching your giving all at once?
Absolutely. It's a technique that's really very simple and good definition here. A donor advised fund, that charitable banking checking account, allows you to, let's say you had especially in a year that maybe you had a little bit of an uptick in income, and you decide, well, this is a good year for us to, instead of just doing our annual charitable giving, let's consider taking 2 or 3 years. I've even had people take as much as up to 5 years of their projected charitable giving, bunch it together, and make the gift into the donor advised fund, and it kind of max out. We're going to talk about some limitations on, I think, in a couple of slides later, but really kind of up their charitable giving for that 1 year. And then they've got time to make their charitable contributions to their church and the other charities and ministries that they want to benefit over that 2 to 3 to 5 year period of time, whatever time their bunching was intended to cover. And it really allows you, I even have people say, they talk to the charity to say, hey, this is what you can expect from us over the next period of time. So it's an incredibly efficient year. And it can be a very good tax planning tool. And we'll talk about some ways to even make it a little bit more impactful.
Yeah. And I know, like with tax planning from our end, when we're talking to clients, with the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, clients are going to hear a lot from us and others talking about that sunsetting at the end of 2025. But, a lot of Americans that have a heart for generosity have been taking this higher standard deduction. And like you're saying, Richard, this is a great way to do a lot of giving to your fund in 1 year, maybe itemize, save more on taxes for those gifts that you wouldn't normally get, and then spread it out. So I love it. Now, when people do that, though, and this is where why it's so good to always talk to your CPA or talk to, folks at NCF or whoever's managing the donor advised fund. There are limitations. Can you touch on those limitations? Because this is something that people don't necessarily know.
Yes. It is, you really have two distinct limits and then kind of the hybrid. The first is that using cash only, you can deduct up to 60% of your adjusted gross income, your AGI, when you make a cash gift. So if I made $100,000 and I was very generous, I could take $60,000 of that, and I could use that and put it into my donor advised fund or give it to charities directly, and I would get a dollar for dollar deduction on that against my income. And then of that percentage, you can also take up to 30% of your adjusted gross income using assets like marketable securities or a gift of real estate. But the IRS only allows for up to 30% of that to be used for charitable deductions. And the other little hybrid twist of that, IRS kind of made things a little bit more difficult, is that you can also give, if you gave 30% of it, of your adjusted gross income in marketable securities or some other non-cash asset, and then you wanted to get to an even upper limit using cash, you can take another 20% of your adjusted gross income, not 30, but 20%, and get a total of 50% using a combination of cash and marketable securities or some other asset type other than cash.
Richard,
And
thank you for that, because I think I've got a little bit of a typo right here. So I appreciate that. That's yeah, that's great. So yeah, so I mean, you can write a big check if you want to. You can gift investments, or other non-cash type assets. Now, I do have a question though, because sometimes people run into this. Sometimes we don't know what our tax situation looks like until
yeah.
after the fact. I think, but I'm going to let you respond. If I exceed one of these limits, do I lose the extra or does it carry over?
No, you've got 5 years to carry forward any unused deduction. And so I just had this conversation with a giver just last Thursday. And so it's fresh on my mind. So I could really get kind of nerded out on it. But it's just really if there's an asset that you're thinking, wow, that stock that Brant and the team suggested, or that mutual fund, and it really just has just gone crazy over the last few years. And we need to pare that back, but it's gonna be more than I can deduct. Well, don't worry, still take it, and it just carries over for up to 5 years. So you really got 6 years to get that in and make sure you get all of that deduction in.
Well, that's yeah, that's excellent right
Big
there.
deal.
So, you don't lose out. I mean, obviously, we give because we want to give. I mean, God calls us to be cheerful givers. Giving comes from the heart. But I don't think there's anybody watching this that, hey, if they could save a little bit in taxes, that wouldn't hurt
Absolutely.
as well. So,
Absolutely.
and that's why it's encouraged. I mean, hey, look, the IRS, the government gives these deductions because
Right.
look, it's better for everybody if, for people to be generous. So,
Yes.
now one thing I wanted to touch on are qualified charitable distributions. I know a lot of folks watching this, maybe a donor advised fund is a perfect tool for them, but there's also some folks on here that maybe clients of ours and are already doing this, or they've heard us talk about qualified charitable distributions, or what, we refer to a lot of times as QCDs.
Mhm.
If you are 70 and a half or older and have a heart for generosity and have retirement funds, so if you have money in an IRA, you're 70 and a half or older, and you're a giver, a qualified charitable distribution is an excellent tool as well, or an excellent strategy as well. This is where you give money directly from your IRA to a charitable organization. It comes out as a distribution, but when you do your taxes, it basically does not count as taxable
Right.
income. And the nice thing for all your retirees out there, if you've ever been hit with Medicare premium adjustments, a QCD is actually what they refer to as
Great
an
way.
above the line deduction, which means it doesn't even touch your AGI, which can be very advantageous. So
Yep.
if you're retired and you want to talk about generosity strategy with your IRA money, keep that in mind as well. Now, that's cash. The other strategy with a donor advised fund is cash. Now, Richard, what about using publicly traded stock? And when I say publicly traded stock, it could be a mutual fund, an ETF, an index fund. It
Correct.
could be shares of NVIDIA. But what about using something like that with your donor advised fund?
Brant, this is one of the things. You allow me to say this, but I know if you all are clients of Steward Wealth, and you have, as I like to say, already taxed or taxable accounts, not in a retirement plan, and those securities, those mutual funds, those individual stocks, they've done well. And you are generously inclined, and you give money every year. We always commend looking at your portfolio first before you give cash. It's a double win to give appreciated stocks or mutual funds away, because you get a deduction for the fair market value of the security, and then the capital gain tax that would normally be done if you sold them outright is wiped away. And so it's just a leveraging technique that is just really great. And I love this. You pay less tax and you improve your personal cash flow. And if that NVIDIA stock, you may be a little high right now, but that was not a recommendation, by the way. But
No,
really
no,
love
not a
it,
solicitation.
and you give some of it away, you can go right back in there with some cash and buy it. There's no
Yeah,
time limitations, and
yeah,
so giving from your taxable investment portfolio is just simply a wonderful strategy. And if I can give one more plug for Steward, and Brent didn't ask me to do this, but I really just commend, whenever you're thinking about these strategies, make sure you go back to your team at your advisor. And this is where they are wise and gifted in their own count. And in this situation, we work together closely, and we can help you make those decisions. But always go back to your advisor first.
yeah. That's great because if it's coming from a brokerage account, generally there's going to be an advisor. Hopefully it's us. We can talk through, hey, here's the investments we think you should gift. We can help facilitate the transfer because what happens is those assets transfer behind the scenes into the donor advised fund. And that's where it gets sold, right, Richard? I mean, you guys sell it.
We sell
And
it immediately.
how is so if there's all the gain transfers with it because National Christian Foundation is a nonprofit foundation. That's why the gain is not taxed at that point,
Correct.
correct?
That's correct. We don't
Yeah.
owe any way at that point in time where the transfer made. We become the owner of it on your behalf charitably, and we sell it immediately, and the proceeds go directly into your donor advised
Yeah.
fund. We have an amazingly good team that handles literally hundreds of trades daily
Yeah.
that are gifted in, sometimes thousands of trades near the end of the year, quite honestly.
Yeah. And then, and I've seen this personally, but then what happens is you end up having cash inside the donor advised fund or your charitable checking account. And then, whoever it is, us as a giver, me and my wife or whatnot, we can just log into our app or
Yep.
however we want to, and then just send the funds out. I mean, and that's got to make it, I would think charitable organizations absolutely love it too, because then they're not having to figure out how to deal with somebody transferring stock or a mutual fund over to them. They're just receiving the funds, a check directly from National Christian Foundation or ACH, however it's processed. And that's it right there.
That is huge. We
Yeah.
we help a
Yeah.
lot of charities behind the scenes by just being their back room. So all they have to do is say, "Hey, don't give that to
Yeah.
us. Give it to NCF, and they'll
Yeah.
take care of it and get the money right back to us." So
Well, and I think, so the generosity, the capital gains, the gift, all that happens. I do see on our end, sometimes we'll have clients that own a stock or an investment, not necessarily because they like it. Maybe they're overweighted or, it's not proper for their portfolio, but sometimes they just don't want to get rid of it because they don't want to pay the taxes. And
it's a great
funding
way
a
to
donor
handle
advised fund. Absolutely. Now, Richard, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
it.
I didn't prep you with this question. So, you tell me to, what about, because sometimes, especially around here, sometimes we've known people have worked for publicly traded companies for 20, 30 years, and sometimes they'll have stock that maybe they don't even know the basis for. Can somebody gift a position to their donor advised fund if they don't know the basis? Will you guys accept that?
You could not have asked a better question, Brant, because that is actually a perfect situation because we don't even have to calculate that. It's a non-event on our book. So a stock that you really don't know the basis of, that is an absolute home run to gift from your portfolio. It's one of the best tools. I was just helping a family just the other day. They were really beginning to expand their generosity, and they had a whole bunch of bank stocks from that had been gifted over the years from parents, and they didn't know what to do with them. I said, well, we just figured it out, and so it's really a freeing thing, quite honestly, because that tax burden will weigh on you.
Yeah, it will. It will. And then sometimes we end up trying to avoid paying taxes and maybe we have more volatility in our portfolio because of it. So
That's
that's
exactly
yeah.
great point.
Yeah. So well, that's great. That is great. So we try to keep these short. That way, we know we keep people's attention span. But, again, today we talked about generosity, and, strategies to keep in mind, writing checks or using investments, using IRA money. But a good tool that I would encourage everybody to keep in mind is what, Richard and I have been referring to, the donor advised fund. And Richard, if somebody wants to open donor advised funds, and I will just say this, there's a lot of donor advised fund providers out there, a lot of foundations, organizations you can go through. If somebody wanted to open one up with National Christian Foundation, Richard, what is the best method to get that started?
That the easiest way, especially if they're clients of Steward Wealth, is to connect back with you guys, their personal advisor, and then you all always do a great job of making a personal invitation. You're going to be sending out some material from us that has our website on it, and you can go. And the easy way to get to us is go to ncfgiving.com/Carolinas, and that'll get you directly to our site. And you can literally set up a fund. It takes less than 5 minutes to do it online. And then we immediately get an email into us, and the team at NCF Carolinas will take it from there.
That's it. Let us know if we can help you. Reach out to Richard's organization. The email body that we're sending this webinar through has a copy of the 2024 Maximize Your Giving Impact from the National Christian Foundation. And I would just say the word impact, I want to kind of close with that right there. God blesses us so we can be blessings and use these resources to make an impact. There's a lot of great organizations, missions, ministry, people out there that, we're blessed with so that we can turn around and be a blessing to them. Richard, I want to say thank you to you. Thank you for joining me today. Yeah, thank you to all the people at National Christian Foundation, all the hard work you do to make giving easy, to make it fun, but helping all of us with the impact and the good that comes from that. So thank you to all our clients, our guests that are watching this. We truly appreciate you. It's an honor to serve you. And if there's anything we can do, please let your team member know here at Steward Wealth Strategies how we can be of service. Thank you all so much, and God bless you. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Brent.
All right. Bye-bye.